Welcome to this webinar, Discover the Future of Work, Microsoft Copilot for 365 in Action. This webinar is brought to you by the IT team. We appreciate you coming. So I have to say Copilot is operating during this meeting, and we will attempt to use it to summarize our activities and maybe a few other things that we are talking about or trying as part of the examples. But I think we'll kick off now. So thank you everyone for joining us. There is most of the people in this meeting will be current IT team customers, and there'll be some that aren't, but welcome all. So to introduce myself, I'm Conan Daly. I'm the General Manager of the IT team. I tend to do a decent number of the webinars when we do them. We don't do them that often. We like to make sure if we're going to do them, they're for a good reason. So, and we think this topic is definitely one of those. So also, and I'm joined by Lucy. Lucy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Lucy. I am part of the service delivery team here at the IT team. I am very curious about tech and tools, so I've gotten involved to help us sort of understand how Copilot for 365 can work internally as well. So I'll be doing a couple of demos and possibly piping in and interrupting Conan as he goes through as well if I disagree with anything.
Thank you very much, Lucy. So the journey of Copilot's been interesting because we did a webinar on Copilot in maybe October before it really even was usable by any organizations that weren't, Coca-Cola and Mobil. And so it was kind of a speculative webinar on what the potential was. And then when the product got released to us, which was a big surprise at the beginning of, second half of January, we put this webinar in place and started notifying customers about it. And so we've only been using it for 3 weeks. And in a way, we, in the last week, realized that the webinar may be best to be called a report card of Copilot and how well it works. It is going to be what it can do, but it also is going to be a bit of a how usable is it for yourselves and us. So hopefully we think that is probably the most valuable thing we can do here as your technology advisor. So yeah, but discover the future of work, Microsoft Copilot in action. We're going to kick off. So about the IT team, just because some of the people in this room do not know who we are. So we formed in 2011. 365 has been deployed since we launched, really, and that's when 365 launched. Managed services and IT support is our core function. Generally, we do everything related to IT. If it turns on, we generally are supporting it. Very cloud-centric, very security-centric, and advisory and guidance is a big part of what we do. In a way, what we're doing today is what we like to do for our customers. So thought I'd keep that brief. Now, one thing we realized is we didn't have an agenda slide. So we thought instead of making one, why don't we try to let Copilot make us an agenda slide. There's a little bit of a live attempting to fly the plane while you're building the plane. So I should be able to reset this because this has shown some examples of me attempting to create background images, etc. So this is a reset. So I'll say, please create an agenda slide in before slide 3. So let's see if this actually does a decent job, because I thought it would be good to actually go over what we're going to talk about today. So obviously we're going to be talking about Microsoft Copilot 365, and we will be talking very briefly about the other parts of Copilot. Okay, here we go. So I put it under slide 4. I won't hold that against it. So talk about the IT team. We're going to talk about Copilot, the different types of Copilot services, how we are using it, what's on the box, which is what has Microsoft said this can do. We're going to go into some demonstrations, some difficulties we are encountering, a report card, and then some final impressions and comments. Lucy would have to say that's a hell of a lot better than the one we tested before this, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that's actually not bad. Good work, Copilot.
Yes, so it is. You could say there is a little bit of a hit and miss element to this, but it's kind of hit here. This has got the gist of what we're going to talk about today. So, and as you see, there is a report card thing. We have given an assessment of the elements that we think are working better than others and overall what we think. So yeah, and there is going to be hopefully a big QR session, as long as we don't, as usual, burn too much time talking about or demonstrating the product. So back to the, I forgot to do that. So that is the agenda. And I'll just hide this over here. So what is CoPilot? It is a Microsoft system. It's not an add-on. It's not ChatGPT. It is Microsoft's product. It is a large language model. This is a term you may have heard. Large language AI model. Large language model, AI model I've got there, based on OpenAI, which is the same organization behind ChatGPT. It's integrated with the core Microsoft 365 apps, which is really what this is all about and what everyone's been waiting for. It accesses your organizational data securely, so it's not publicly being used to learn the system. So no other company using their CoPilot can get access to your CoPilot, obviously. And it is a subscription based. And what I mean by that is there is a cost associated with it. To differ from the other CoPilot things you may have seen, because the brand is used in multiple areas, CoPilot for 365, which we're going to be talking about today, is the subscription base that has additional cost, that works with Teams, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, etc. It works with the Office suite, SharePoint, etc., where your data is held. Then you have CoPilot for Windows 11, which is one that you may have on your desktop. Excuse me. You may have it on your desktop and it makes you think you've got CoPilot. We've had the old customer say, oh no, I've already got it. And this was before it was released. Technically you do. This system that may be on your Windows 11, and I have to say it was on mine a week and a half ago and now it's not. This is a little bit different to what we're mainly going to be talking about today. It's very different actually. It does not access your data. It only accesses what you put into it. It's a bit more similar to ChatGPT. It can be secure, as in you can put data in and it doesn't use that in the wide world. And it's only really accessible on your laptop, desktop, or mobile device. It's used for asking questions. So you'll say, tell us about this, or tell us about that, or what could you analyze this paragraph or sentence. It's less able to say, can you please look at this document in my SharePoint? It's got some good uses, but it's more similar to ChatGPT. Then you've got CoPilot, formerly Bing Chat. CoPilot in the web browser, which is in Edge, is almost identical to CoPilot for Windows 11, although Windows 11 can make some tweaks to settings in that. It can be secure for your organization, but it is far more limited in what it can do, just to be clear. In a way, it's an extension of a web browser. It's a smart AI-based web browser type extension. So yeah, just highlighting that if you haven't got a license for CoPilot for 365 and you haven't, which is not the cheapest, so you probably know if you've got it, you don't have the CoPilot that we're going to be demonstrating today. So if you were trying to do those things, you may not be able to do it. You won't be able to do it, sorry, unless you have the license. So how are we, the IT team, using this technology? So we've had 3 to 4 weeks usage. It took us a while to get started. We had some teething issues. It's limited to 5 or 6 users internally, including Lucy and myself. We have a pilot group with some customers. We put a few word outs to some customers that have been interested and said, would you like to join a bit of a group where we could learn, and that's still underway. We were kind of trading, I guess, our experiences to help us accelerate ours and their adoption of this tool. We are attempting to use it instead of the other AI tools we have been using ourselves. So some of us in the IT team are big ChatGPT users. We use it regularly, daily. And so we've been trying to go, hey, let's pause using that and use CoPilot, even though we're somewhat used to and familiar with using ChatGPT. But it's still only 3 weeks. So what's on the box? What's on the tin? So we wanted to show or talk about what Microsoft have said that the system can do, or what it's meant to do, which will sometimes be what it will do eventually. But this was an important thing because we've obviously been talking about it and showing it, and everyone has developed an impression based on those videos, and the marketing that Microsoft has done. So we're going to show, this is just a little bit of a collage of the types of things that we've snipped out of videos and examples that Microsoft have been showing. And then we're going to give our own demonstrations and talk about the differences in some cases. So an example of something in the marketing that Microsoft have shown, I've seen this image actually 100 times, using Teams, using CoPilot in a Teams call, similar to what we're doing today. So you can interact live with a Teams-based assistant, CoPilot, during a meeting and ask it some quite complex requests. So for example, in this image, there is a meeting going on between 4 people, although you can only see 2 of them. And it said create a table with a production timeline. So presuming they're talking about some sort of production timeline, and it creates a table. Now, that gives the impression of some quite sophisticated capability there, which is really cool. So that's an example of what it can do. Outlook. Turn long email threads into easily understandable summaries. As you can see here, there's a summary by CoPilot. Kevin obviously sent an email, and this is summarizing a long email into 2 small paragraphs. Then creating a draft to respond to Kevin, a draft email, which is down here. So you don't see the email here, but you see the what you are inputting to allow that draft. So that is another example of what was shown in the marketing quite extensively. This is a very basic clip that we got of using Outlook and Teams with CoPilot. It's shown an example. So finding a conflict and looking to follow a meeting. It shows recapping the meeting as well in quite a quick, jumpy way. So you can see over there, this is then jumped from a meeting that you're not attending into to allow you to follow that meeting. And then you can request a recap or on the action items within that meeting. So that sounds great because then you don't have to attend all your meetings, you just get a recap. So this is an example of what Microsoft have shown. Furthermore, the CoPilot chat. Here you can see the example of what we've got at the top is asking CoPilot an open question about a project that is active within your organization. So someone has said, what's the latest on the store opening in Phoenix? So quite a vague query, to be fair, that you might ask a colleague, and CoPilot has gone away and sought through all the data that it can access and come up with the launch kickoff time and plans and the requests and everything. As you can see, these numbers here associate with reference points, so you can drill into where CoPilot has got that data. So this is another example of what CoPilot chat is meant to be able to do. And here is an example of CoPilot in Word, a quick clip, taking a paragraph with some information and turning it into a table. So quite a powerful tool there to allow using CoPilot to help you improve your Word documents and manipulate data. So pretty nifty there. We'll continue on. Another one using PowerPoint. I kind of showed an example of what PowerPoint can do earlier, but this is a suggested example that Microsoft have shown. Requesting PowerPoint to help you reorganize your slides into a more appropriate structure, which is quite a cool feature. Excel, I won't show an example here because it takes too long, but this here is showing a request for what Copilot and Excel could do, reviewing your data, reviewing your spreadsheet, and providing targeted analysis, like you've got a business specialist or genius in your corner. So what's the total sales of light roast whole bean, obviously some coffee, and it will grab the total sales. I actually will show the clip. So this here looks very elaborate, using Copilot to forecast sales based on some raw data. So it actually does some code in here according to the sheet and produces some forecast data. So this gives the impression that you, as I said earlier, you've got a bit of a specialist in here that could give you skills that you might not even have in your organization. Very impressive. So what we wanted to do, though, is before we get into our demonstrations, is talk a little bit about what Copilot isn't or it doesn't do. And this is us, I guess, in a way, managing or reflecting on our expectations. So one, it's not an omnipresent system. Like I think when you watch the marketing, you can get the impression that you have this Copilot sitting on your shoulder that is always there and will almost observe your day and go away and find opportunities to help you live, and is always circling around your system and looking for things to do. like some science fiction AI models that we may have seen in films, etc. It's not that. Ultimately, what CoPilot is it's an embedded side application within those systems that you can make requests of, and it will go and do those then. It isn't a technological, the AI model leap forward from ChatGPT. It's the same platform. So ultimately what ChatGPT is limited to, this is somewhat limited to, and we'll come back to that a little bit later as well. Generally, each app in CoPilot is quite separate. So, if you're in Word and you say, what's the data in this document? It's not going to go and look at heaps of other documents unless you explicitly ask it to. It's not going to go and look at your Excel. On the other hand, the CoPilot Teams chat, which we showed earlier, does do that to a degree. It doesn't learn. This was a big one for us. It's not constantly learning from the way you are talking or the way you are interacting or your organization's content. It's not picking up your jargon and going, oh, the IT team's referring to this all the time. I now know what that is. And you don't have instructions that you can say. So in ChatGPT, you can say, we're a managed service provider. We live in New Zealand. Always use English, New Zealand. Always use this, etc. My role is XYZ. It doesn't have that presently. And the customization is very powerful with the CoPilot Studio, but ultimately it doesn't have base level customization. Ultimately it's there and it's ready to use, but the experience that I'll get is the same as what Lucy or potentially another person will get, obviously data being the differentiator. So we didn't want to deflate, but we are now going to give a series of demonstrations of real world things that we are doing and we found valuable in CoPilot. The reason why I wanted to show the Microsoft examples is because after this, we are going to talk about how it has differed from some of those examples, what it can and can't do. And it was also a fast way to kind of show the capability. And there are things that CoPilot has shown that we may miss as well. So where do you think we start, Lucy? Email?
Yeah, I think kick in from the top and we'll sort of tap in and out of screen shares as we can.
So while we are recording this, I'm going to be browsing through our data. So we'll try and be quick and not show anything sensitive or anything, but we won't be distributing this recording to the world. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Privacy is important, but we do have to use our data. So this is, hopefully it's not too difficult to see, but this is my inbox. So I'm going to open up an email from Lucy that was a semi-legitimate email from a marketing company. And but we've just obviously put Daffy Duck in there instead of a few other people and changed a few of the things so it's somewhat neutral. So if we go to summary, the summary function in CoPilot. So as you can see at the top, summary by CoPilot. This is sitting at the top of every one of my emails now. And I'll click on summary and it's going to scan this email, which is not the shortest, but it's not the longest, but it's not short. And it is going to provide a very short summary of what it says. So Lucy Reese says, appreciates you on the collaboration with you and Daffy and what's the plan the year ahead. 50% discount, thank you, Lucy. Offer broadening the types of lead generation campaigns. Propose a meeting and have updated the Monday board to track progress. So yeah, there's probably some things I've missed, but ultimately you can imagine that if this was a long email chain, the ability to quickly summarize can offer a great degree of value. Now, if I take this further, I'm going to reply to Lucy and get CoPilot's assistance to generate a response. So if you can see this little icon up here, this will be exclusive to people that have the CoPilot license. I'm going to click in here and it has coaching with CoPilot, which if I've already written an email, it will try and give me coaching. As if it has anything it could. No, it does have a lot it could add. It coaches on my spelling.
Fluffy, I'll be honest, you feel a wee bit precious.
Yeah, we'll say your tone's a bit harsh, which it's probably true. So I'm going to write a response to Lucy. Now, it probably is changing its response because it knows that Lucy is within the IT team because she has the same domain as I. But I'm going to say draft. I want this email to say, thank Lucy. And well, I'll say write an email. I probably don't need to say that. Thanking Lucy, etc. So this is about as light and vague as you can get. I should give it more information, but we're going to see what we get. So you can change the tone. I could be direct, I could be neutral, could be casual, formal, a poem, and the length can be adjustable depending on how much detail you want to go in. So I'm going to keep it casual, and I'm going to keep it medium. So I'm going to generate this draft. So I should probably give it more information. I mean, maybe I'll tweak it again and ask it to be more to the affirmative. Now, this is quite a lot of key points, so it is taking a bit longer than it would if you were just drafting a very quick, say, thank you response. I should say you can also draft fresh emails. So if you just want to say, write an email to Lucy saying how the weekend was, or how has she gotten with reaching out to John or something like that. But I think this one is one of the longer ones it takes to generate. But as you can see, it has generated an email. Now, this is quite a long response. And it has taken some pretty big liberties and leaps, but in a way, it has done more than what a cookie cutter system would do. So it's thanked for the offer. It appreciates understanding about commitments, agree to plan ahead for the lead generation campaigns, talks about such and such is a great idea. Then it goes into responses to the question. So it's actually attempting to answer it. Now, as I didn't give it an indication, so it's likely just responding on what it thinks someone will respond. So we're considering hiring, but haven't made a decision yet. We're weighing the pros and cons. I'm not sure if that's true, but I guess it's somewhat neutral. Interested in the LinkedIn proposal? Can you give us more information, etc. I think what the takeaway from this is, it will actually drill in and attempt to respond to the email the way it believes a human would. So I would give this a pretty good, a pretty positive response, thumbs up, because it hasn't just said thank you and have a nice day, which it could do. So, and then you can say keep it, you can say regenerate, discard, but if I go keep it, now I can edit it and change it. And the formatting's okay, it could be better, but it kind of follows the formatting of this. Well, actually bullet points there. So yeah, you're doing an amazing job, Lucy. We are very happy with your work and support.
Thanks,
You're a valuable member of your team. Yeah, you got to take your wins where you get them.
You can definitely tell sometimes when someone sent you an email that CoPilot wrote for them.
That is right. So there is a little bit of can be a little bit excessive, but ultimately I think it just gives an example about how detailed it can be. So moving on, what's the next one, Lucy?
You're going to do a PowerPoint generation from a doc.
And I can't see my window. So, okay. So PowerPoint generation. So I'm going to do a wee example. So this here is a PowerPoint we did last year. So it's got a lot of slides, a lot of data. Looks better than the current one. Actually, I didn't say at the start, but this webinar, this presentation that we've done was generated by CoPilot. Supposed to say at the start. And we're not exactly in love with the style and the look, just to be clear, but we wanted to show an authentic demonstration of what can be created. Back to this PowerPoint. So this one here, I'm going to take this PowerPoint and convert it into Word. So Word is going to take the data and convert it. So I'm not sure if others have use cases where you may receive a PowerPoint or something and you just want to make it more usable, or use it for certain needs. So this here is Word. You've got CoPilot up here, or you've got a few different ways to access CoPilot, but I'm going to ask it to reference a file. I want the other one. So let's talk about webinar. Oh, hopefully it will find it. Yes, that's the webinar I want, and I'm just going to say, please summarize. Now, I have had the odd issue with this, not liking our permissions, but let's see if we have success. So right now it's combing through the info, it's reviewing all of the content in the, and it didn't like it. So I'm going to try this again. Summarize this into a document. Let's try it. I'll try it one more time. We do have some interesting permissions at the IT team that seem to be causing a little bit of disruption, which we're not 100, we haven't put I guess, the biggest effort into understanding what that is, because it's stumping us a little bit. But as you can see, it did work second time. So this is taking that PowerPoint and is converting it into a Word doc. It's adding a lot more detail, as you can see. And it's not just copying the data from the PowerPoint. So as you can see, we have some simple information questions here, mostly bullet points. On the other hand, in the Word doc, we have quite a lot of detail. So it will be adding it, it'll be consolidating slides, and doing what it can. So I can make it longer, try it again, whatever. I'm not going to do that because it's going to burn time. So I'm going to keep this. Now, I'm going to do the reverse just to show you how Word can be converted into PowerPoint, because I think that is probably a more useful use case. So I will open up a fresh PowerPoint slide deck presentation. I'm going to open up CoPilot over here. I'm going to, now you can use information across the entire organization, but for now, I'm going to create a presentation from a file. It's going to pop up and give me examples. I'm going to type in, this one here is the one I prepared earlier. I took that same thing and saved it because sometimes it will have trouble finding fresh files, which we'll talk about later. Create a presentation from this file, and let's see how it goes. So it has taken that Word document, effectively the same one that I created. Let's just assume it is this, and it is going to attempt to convert this into a PowerPoint. I'll close this and not save it. So firstly, it is creating an outline. Then it will attempt to generate the PowerPoint slides. It does take a little bit of time. It's got to do a little bit of thinking. It's not instant, but doesn't take too long. You know, it might take 30 seconds to 45 seconds to do. Now, as we said, our PowerPoint that we created for this presentation, the one that we will jump back to shortly after these demonstrations, that was created from CoPilot, and we are not necessarily in love with the look and the layout. So it has created it. It has said, I've drafted 18 slides. It includes speaker notes, images, and layouts. And it suggests you use Designer, which we use sometimes. But I could go back with other things as well. So here we go. It's got a pretty basic front, to be honest. I'm not sure if I'd give it the greatest design kudos, but anyway, it's got an introduction. It's got some images in here. You know, if you were in a hurry, it's done a pretty decent job. I'm not going to read all the data.
Do you want to show the speaker notes as well? Pull that up on one of the...
yes, of course. Thank you, Lucy. So if we talk about best practices, notes, it does give you a bit of notes. So it talks about original content, but it gives you your own ones. Some will have more than others. It's obviously just taken visualization and decided to add a graph, which is quite cool, to try and match up with the content. So yeah, ultimately, not a terrible job. It's interesting. It's got a lot more images down the bottom and the top. So I could say add an image to the slide. And it will try to. Sometimes it will say no. It is a bit of a disgruntled staff member occasionally, but usually it will say yes. So as you can see, it's got an extensive agenda down here as well. So, it doesn't, slide 2. So it's asked for clarification. So let's see what it does. Lucy, if you want to get yourself ready to do the next demo, this is almost finished. I'll let you share. Program failed. It didn't like it. I'm going to try one more time. I'll try on this slide. So this is live demonstrating, live AI. Add an image to this slide.
It's quite good because it does sort of give a bit of a sneak preview for some of the realistic feedback, I suppose, we've got on it as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is a hot take or real life usage. And when we were editing, oh goodness, okay. I'm going to say add a image to the introduction slide. My spelling is terrible, my writing, and see if we get it. Now I can say that we did do this numerous times with the other one, and it did actually work pretty well, adding images and editing and changing colors reasonably well. So it can do it. But there we go. Thank you. Now, was that worth that? Probably not, but it has added an image. All right, I'm going to hand over to you, Lucy.
Oh, good. That was a wee bit of an anticlimax. Lovely. So I'll just share that screen there. So I'm going to run through a couple of things as well. So this is obviously in Teams. This is the meeting chat of a meeting we had back on the 13th of February that we had CoPilot turned on for. So if you've got CoPilot enabled for a meeting, you'll have this little recap button at the top. Once you jump in here, you can hit this little CoPilot button. This is the same chat that you have access to within a meeting if CoPilot's turned on as well. So you can interact with this during or you can interact after. So I've already asked it previously what were the key outcomes, but I'll just say recap the meeting and we will see what it pops up with. You see at the top, it's got a couple of lots of bit of information. It's your CoPilot. So I'm interacting with this chat here for the meeting. Everyone else who was in the meeting who's got CoPilot enabled will have their own little one of these, and we won't be seeing each other's questions and answers. So here you go. It has gone. These are the key things that we talked about. I agreed to draft a descriptor, so that's good. I'm pretty sure I have done that. But again, it could be quite good at the end of a meeting to say, what did I say I would do, and when did I say I would do it by?
Was that the one when you said you thought Ben was supposed to do that, or was that the previous one? Yeah, it might be. Yeah. No, I'm thinking there was one where you disputed it. Anyway.
What's quite handy actually is you can also, if you hover over these little, references, can take you directly to the transcript, so you can see. I said I'm happy to jump on a door, which is helpful and shows you that sometimes it doesn't get things quite right, but it does manage to get to its little recaps.
That is an interesting point. The New Zealand accent does not seem to be well loved by Microsoft's transcription, because ultimately what's at play here is every word we are speaking is being transcribed by a voice to text system, and then CoPilot is taking that text and making it usable. And in a way, I guess one of the most impressive parts of it is that it actually takes me saying things that I'm not actually saying and figuring out that I probably wasn't meaning that, and kind of giving a correct interpretation. One area it does fail on, though, is often we are talking about customers and we'll say a name and it will give a completely different name. But anyway, I'll let you continue, Lucy. Excuse me.
Yeah. A couple more prompts as well that it just gives as suggestions, which are quite helpful. What questions are unresolved? Good to ask if you're in the lead up to a meeting. Different perspectives by topic can be quite interesting. So yeah, I definitely recommend giving it a go. Quite useful. The other thing while we're in Teams is you'll notice there's this little CoPilot chat. So this is a one-to-one chat with CoPilot, most similar to ChatGPT. And it has some suggestions of things. I mean, you can ask it, write me a recipe, the usual things we use ChatGPT for. A couple of the prompts that they give you are quite cool though. So what's new? It's going to jump in down here and I'm going to say, hey, I want to know what's new from Nikki. It's going to organize them by emails, chats, and files. I'm going to hit send and we'll see what comes up. Here we go. It is out and about looking. It's got access to documents, emails, chat messages, all sorts of things. So it's essentially looking to anything pertinent that Nikki and I've talked on. So there you go. Nikki was working on a file yesterday. We were working on one together. A few hours ago, she sent me some messages and the likes as well. She put something into our IT team general channel. So it's not just looking at things we've been interacting on. It's been looking at anything that I've got access to that she has also done too. So it's not going to tell me about Nikki's salary or a private confidential document she was working on that I do not have access to. Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, we've given it a couple of test runs actually. I probably we did put it through its paces a wee bit to see what it would and wouldn't tell us. Yep. In Word, so again, Colin sort of showed you how you make things from other types of docs. Quite a useful use case that I've given a go is some sort of HR related stuff. So please generate me a job ad from the job description. So we've got JDs, as I'm sure a lot of places do. So hey, we've got this job description, which is more an outline of what that function is, but formatted like this job ad. So I can give it an example of a job ad we've written previously and go, hey, that's the sort of style of output that I want, but it needs to actually be this content instead. So it's going to have a look at those couple of docs. Hopefully it's going to play ball and do it for me. We should see it starting to write shortly. Here we go, working on it. So it's starting to pop some stuff in there, and it is, I'll zoom in a little bit. It's got quite good with the creative writing, so it's done this all itself. If you've got a passion for IT and a knack for solving problems. I don't think we had that written in one of our original job ads, but splits out, hey, here we are, what the job is. It's managed to summarize quite well, I would say, from the JD, what the core sort of purpose of that function is, the things that we'll need from you. And then we've got a couple of other sections we tend to have, but this is pretty close to how we would normally lay out a job ad. It's pretty similar to that original document that I shared with it, but it's managed to pick up the sort of specifics of that role that we were looking at. So there you go. It's gone all the way down to the what we offer and finished it off. Not bad, gives you a starting point. And to be honest, I don't think I'd probably make too many changes before it went out. And the last one I've got the Excel if you want me to jump into it, Connor.
Yeah, please.
Cool. Perfect. All right. So Excel, a couple of key things to note with Excel. Your document needs to be in SharePoint or in OneDrive in order for CoPilot to actually be there and enabled for you to work with. So it's probably a key thing to note. Your data also needs to be in a table, and if it's not in a table, it will not do anything. So this is some dummy data.
Important, isn't it? Like
yeah, if you've just got
a soft dart,
yeah,
off guard, yeah.
If you've just got sort of a really basic CSV file, you're not going to get very far until you get your content into a table, which can be a bit of a hurdle to get over. So this is actually content that CoPilot created for me as well, using the Teams chat. I said, hey, I want 40 lines of data related to this sort of thing. So I'm selected in the table. I'm going to go, hey, show data insights. And then the bit that's probably the most neat about this is what we will do after it's gone ahead and done that. So it's having a look at my data, trying to understand it, figuring out what's actually useful. Be interesting to see what it pops out with. There you go. It's given me some sales data by year in there. Perfect. So we've got the option to add that to a new sheet if we want. What's really neat though, there's this all button, add all insights to grid. So I don't know what else it's gone away and found, but if you hit that, it actually makes you quite an impressive sort of set of analysis on your data. So it's gone ahead and put a whole bunch of insights that it thinks could be of interest. It's created pivot tables for each of those as well. So if you want to jump in and make changes, you can, but it gives you a pretty good starting point again if you're not too sure what it is you're looking for with your data. So yeah, I think that's probably the main things from me, Connor.
Excellent, Lucy. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, you can hit the share back.
One thing we didn't do was probably just talking a little bit about the CoPilot chat. So where are we up to? Sorry. So I've just lost my spot. One moment. Here we go. So on the demonstration. So if we go to the CoPilot chat, you can ask it things that you would ask ChatGPT. So if you were wanting to ask it about how a refrigerator works, or what's the fastest route to Alaska, or how to make a great butter chicken, this can do those things. And I guess those aren't really work related, but conceptual high level things you can do. One thing I have asked it a few times to do is when is my next meeting with X? I'll say Lucy. I'll probably say now. And it sometimes will give a decent answer. I have found it a little bit hit or miss with the answers, but you will get those types of questions. It's also got a whole bunch of people that are in there. I forgot about that one. I'm going to do some prep. Remind me 15 minutes for the meeting. Will it actually do that? So this, we can see this as being one of the most powerful uses for CoPilot, because you're really interacting with the technology. But I think we have, so it suggested this, and then it's now told me it can't do it. I think the potential here is really great. But if you were using ChatGPT, this is where you would put a lot of those queries if you wanted to write an email. So I could say, write an email to Lucy saying this, or I could do it in Outlook. The example we showed in Outlook earlier, which was the marketing email, we put that in here and got this to neutralize the data, so take out the people and places and edit some things. So this is where you can do a lot of your activity in CoPilot. Now, one thing I forgot to do, we were going to do the live demo, Lucy. I'm going to rattle off some questions for Lucy, and she's going to. Yep. Yes. So, Lucy, what's your favorite ice cream?
You're currently screen sharing all of our videos, by the way, which is not fun to look at.
Yes, good
My
call.
favorite
I'll
ice
do
cream
that.
is Gold Rush.
Okay. Favorite potato chip?
Ready salted?
Really?
Not true. No, that's
Okay.
not true. It was the first one I
Okay.
could think of.
Drink.
A hazy IPA.
Nice. What about non-alcoholic drink?
A hazy IPA that 0% alcohol.
Okay, good answer. TV show? That's for food.
Taskmaster.
Excellent, well done. Okay, so right now, if I say live in the meeting, as you can see, CoPilot's on the right. Please create a table with Lucy's favorite items.
Things. Yeah. See what it does.
Food and TV. That's a bit weird, but because I threw the TV thing in there, but let's see what it comes up with. So obviously it was quite recent, and I'm not sure how well that will react, but let's see what we get. Okay, so I only got, food, Gold Rush, and hazy IPA. I guess you did say 2 types of hazy IPA and TV show. So that's a bit unusual. I think I'll just say, please create list Lucy's favorite food and drink from the meeting. While we're doing that, would some of the people in the chat feel free to throw in their favorite ice cream into the chat? I don't know if this will actually work. We've never tested this, but we'll see. So yeah, as you food and drink from the meeting are Gold Rush, hazy IPA, and Taskmaster apparently. Now we have had this do some quite impressive things. So we were in a meeting and we said we got everyone to sort of vote for something, and we weren't really doing it for this. And then we tested to see if CoPilot got it, and it did. So you can use it for this. Although, albeit, I'd say it's not as perfect as one would like. So a little bit later, I'll try the ice cream things, but no one's actually put anything in. Okay, moving back to the the presentation. So we've completed the demonstrations. What are some of the difficulties we are encountering? So, sorry, just move everyone back here. So the responses can be inconsistent, and it creates uncertainty about what is possible. So to explain that, occasionally you'll be asking it to do something and it'll say, I'm unable to do that because I'm just an AI model. And so you think, oh, okay, that's one of its limitations. But then you try it again a different time and it will be successful. And so it does create a bit of confusion to us about what's possible, because of even some things that I was testing last night that I knew were not possible at the time, I had it was successful, and I went, okay, oh, maybe it can do these things. Accessing files is ultimately a bit of a nuisance. I was able to do it here, but you can't browse to a file. It's sort of looking at recent files, and you can type in a file name, and it'll sort of search via SharePoint a little bit. Ultimately, you can get it to access the file you usually want, but there are times when it will make you jump through some hoops and be frustrating, particularly if it hasn't cached yet. So I think it is a small, it is a notable nuisance that Microsoft probably doesn't believe is an issue. Some file types are not easy to use. So with ChatGPT, I have it analyze images. I have it analyze photos of whiteboard writings. I take notes on this device, and it's sorry, so you can see what I'm talking about. And it's ChatGPT does an incredible job of rewriting my notes. I've got to jump through a lot of hoops to do that in CoPilot, which is slightly disappointing. So, and PDFs, it sort of doesn't natively want to do. You can do it in the Bing chat one, or there's certain ways you can do it, but it's just not simple and easy. So we found that to be disappointing. Image generation is part of Microsoft Designer, unlike being natively part of Bing. Now, one of the marketing images suggested that it can actually generate images. We are fairly certain that it cannot. So it's likely to be a feature coming, but the marketing has shown some things that it can't actually do. It is sometimes false. If I ask it when my next 5 meetings with Lucy is, it might give me 3. So that is there's a bit of a problem. You do have some technical difficulties. As you saw earlier, it decided it had an issue with my permissions, but then I basically ran it again and it was successful. One big one, we had these hopes that we thought, based on the marketing, that it could do. one of the things that showed really impressively with Word was the ability to take notes in OneNote and existing document and merge those together. We have found that with our proposal documents, which was the hope that I had of being able to save myself a lot of time, it's just too complicated for it, and it doesn't really want to do it. So it likes a very simple document. It likes raw, simple data. At present, if you've got a complicated contract and you're like, oh man, we could add a few notes and it will create a contract from us, I think it might be able to, but I think the chances are it's not going to do it as well as you'd like it to. As we said, it's sometimes not clear on what it can and can't do. So sometimes it will tell you that it just categorically cannot do something, and another time it will do it. And it's not the most intuitive. When we had our group that we've worked on with customers with this technology, when we had them using it at the start, you get your license and you do get a pop-up that says you have CoPilot now, but it's not very helpful in showing you how to use it. So a lot of people kind of go, do I have it? Is it working? Is it not working? Because it's not as clear. So I think ultimately, even though we are IT people, we had a bit of confusion about what was working, what wasn't working. Add to that some technical difficulties, and so it really did slow us down. So the first week we were kind of standing around going, I'm not sure if it's actually implemented properly because I can't do everything. And a lot of that was implemented properly. We just weren't using it properly. And other times we did have technical issues. So we are having some difficulties, we have to say, being completely honest about the product. So we thought we'd do a little bit of a report card on what we think based on our 2 to 3 weeks of usage. So starting with Teams chat, we're giving it a C+. The reason why we want to give it a C+ is it is very good. It is a usable function. It can be very good. It's not as good as ChatGPT. The answers, they're not as detailed, and it's just not writing as well. Also, there are inaccuracies, like I gave the example of, tell us about how many meetings I have this week with this person. So the inaccuracy really does drag it down. But we do see this as a really an important progression that Microsoft should get it sorted, and it will improve and will be a really useful part of it. Teams recap, A-. We actually think this is very impressive. So I'm not sure how well Lucy's demonstration made it clear, but if you are using Teams meetings in the way that we do, which is a lot of the time, the recap function is very powerful. Now, we want to be clear, we might use it too much because we're kind of going, how many meeting notes and recaps and action points do we want to generate if we're having 40 meetings a week? But if you're having Teams meetings online in a regular basis, having the ability for the system to generate notes and generate action points is incredibly valuable and time saving. The reason why we're knocking it down a couple of points is, one, you can't interact with it. So it is interactive, but you can't get it to edit its own perspective or data very well. So if it's gotten a customer's name wrong, I initially assumed I would be able to say, hey, actually, it's spelt like this, and it doesn't edit it. And so that means that we have to take the recap out, edit it, and then put it back into Teams or wherever we want to do it. So, but I think ultimately the Teams recap with improvements and tweaks is 90% there. It is hard for us to criticize CoPilot for Teams' difficulty understanding our accent, and some people might have more difficulty with the comprehension. But we have found it to be a genuinely valuable leap forward for us. Outlook email assistance, we're giving it a B. I think the examples I gave showed it to be very useful. One thing I'd say is that occasionally it feels like it'd be quicker to just write the email. The main reason is that it doesn't write it in my style. And I think that's actually quite important. So I do feel like when I'm generating an email, I have to be careful because it looks like it's not written by me. And so you may end up editing. I think until it is editing it in your words, it's going to save some time, but not nearly as much as it can. PowerPoint, giving it a C, that might be a little bit harsh. And the reason is it probably should be a C+. It is usable, but it's mainly good at a foundation. quickly turning a Word document into a PowerPoint that you can use. I used it last week. I had a big long email with a whole bunch of information, and I had to present something to my boss, and I wanted to present it in PowerPoint, and I whacked it in, and it actually did an okay job. It wasn't as good looking as it should have been. Sometimes some of the data was probably spread out over slides where it shouldn't be, but it did actually do a good job, a decent job. But I think it could be so much better, and based on the marketing, it should be able to make very impressive PowerPoint presentations and allow you to interact with it far better. I think the ability to say change the style and add more images, it should be able to do that. And presently, it's a little bit sluggish. So, but it is a usable system. See, I think Word, Lucy, you thought I was very harsh on this. I think ultimately, its lack of ability to edit existing documents and substitute data really quickly means that I think a lot of people are going to find it less valuable than they'd hoped. Excel, I'm just saying D, I think based on your demonstration, Lucy, I think I'd change that. What would you give it?
Well, I think if you're not someone who's particularly Excel savvy, it can probably jumpstart you quite well, and I think that's probably the best use case. But if you already know how to interact with Excel, make tables, do pivot tables and graphs and things, it's not going to speed you up at the moment.
Yeah. Very cool. OneNote and Whiteboard we have not really used, so we didn't want to make comment on those. I should be clear, we're not including things like CoPilot Security, Sales CoPilot, CoPilot Studio in this. We haven't really used those yet, although one of our guys is dabbling with the Sales CoPilot. So final impressions. This might have seemed a bit harsh, and I think we just wanted to be really honest about the value it's bringing to us. It hasn't saved us, it's not saving us. If I've given it a C, it's not saving us time. That's probably the key thing. It's not actually saving us time. So the Teams chat, if we hadn't heard of ChatGPT before, we probably think it's amazing. And that's the thing, because we're using ChatGPT quite a lot to help us with questions, we have gotten less value from that. So final impressions, updates are coming. I think the ones that are in the roadmap are quite specific. So it's hard to tell if they're going to be major changes to the system. We do, for an example, it's one of the updates that's on the roadmap is the ability to book meetings or draft book meetings, which we think is actually really helpful. The ability to say, can you please find a time for these 10 people 3 times over the next month? So that's one. Microsoft have a track record of a poor initial release. OneDrive was dreadful. Teams was pretty poor. SharePoint wasn't great as far as in 365. So it is not uncommon for them to have a slow start with a product. It uses the same background tech as GBT, so it should be comparable with its responses. We've found the quality to be a little bit lower, but we do think it will improve pretty quickly. We think their marketing is something we want to talk about. One of the things that CoPilot has done with its marketing is it's shown something it can do, and then so you make assumptions about the other things it can do. So that there was an example about Lucy's example of, hey, tell me about this person. Everything related to this person. So you kind of think, okay, well, I can dig deep. I can say, tell me what they've done last week and tell me what's going on with this project. And I think on paper it can do that, but the reality is those prompts that Lucy showed are what it will do well. And the other things that you might assume that it could do that seem the same, it often will just not do. So I think the perception has created this idea of a huge scope and potential of it, and it is a bit more narrow. I think Microsoft are trying to get it to do 10 or 15 things with each product, and we probably assumed it could do, well, thousands. And maybe that's the right way for it to do it. It should just draft emails. It should just look up meetings, etc. But we think it has created a perception among us that it could do a lot more. And so we've just been, I guess, reckoning with that. The Teams recap is a clear winning feature, we want to say. It's very clear. We have seen great value, and we are changing the way we are working to take advantage of that more, to save us time. And so we want to say that. The Teams chat is good, really good if you don't use ChatGPT. I don't think it means if you use ChatGPT it's not good, but I think you gain greater value if you don't use ChatGPT. Other features for us are a bit of a work in progress. Word, PowerPoint, Excel, they're definitely a work in progress. You can see the bones, but they've got a long way to go to change the way we work substantially. Some quick info before you would get started. So it's available to all organizations now, not just big ones like it was last year. The thing is, Microsoft, they're trying to restrict everyone adopting it. So annual payment is required. You can have 1 user, 2 users, or 100. It's an add-on license, so it requires business standard or E3. We think it might actually be E1, but that's why it's highlighted. I was supposed to look that up and didn't. The license cost is $582 per year per user on top of what you're paying. That's annual, just to make sure that's clear. So it's about $50 a month. We recommend a SharePoint audit. Now, one of the things is, Lucy talked about the fact that there's certain things it won't do, but we do. Microsoft have even said you don't want a situation where you've asked some information about something and it's pulled really sensitive information out of like a contract or an email, and that is a possibility that is even Microsoft have declared. So they've suggested you audit your SharePoint, and that is something we're helping with to make sure you don't have rogue permissions that you or someone else have created. And we would recommend some training to get started. We used a tool that we have called Clip to get a head start, and it did help to understand what works and what doesn't work. We would have been a bit more shabby at this if we didn't do that training. Right now, I know I haven't had the greatest left the greatest amount of time, but opening it up to the floor for any questions, if there are any. So we've got a couple of comments, I'll say, and we've got some people are posting their flavors in, which is great. So John's put in a comment that he gets the same from Apple Siri. It's constantly saying cool instead of call, which is true, and we get that a lot, John. What we have found pleasantly with the recap or with CoPilot is it actually figures that out. I'm not sure how or what it's using to determine
context that. Somehow, yeah. The
only thing we find it has an error is, when it's something really specific and we said it once, like we might say, I'm not sure if we said call once or we spoke about a particular noun, it would sometimes only once it would get that wrong, because I think it needs a few examples to kind of work out what you're actually trying to say. John has also asked the question of is any non-profit pricing known or expected? So it's expected. The challenge is that Microsoft they are aggressively attempting to minimize how quickly this is being adopted, because they don't have the server load to support the people that they anticipate are going to take on this technology. So they're rapidly getting the NVIDIA chipsets and all those things that are required to power AI functions. They are short of the server resources, and so the annual subscription is a way for them to slow it down. And so I think based off that, they won't be hurrying to get the non-profit pricing implemented, John, unfortunately. Ian has mentioned about new Outlook versus old Outlook. You're correct, the new Outlook is a big change. Now, in the roadmap, old Outlook will be supported with CoPilot. So one thing we didn't mention is you're required to use new Outlook, which if you don't know if you have it, if you're in Outlook, you might see new Outlook in the upper right, as shown there. I was using old Outlook because I like old Outlook, and I tried new Outlook and reverted back. But I'm using new Outlook and it works. We do know that it's on the roadmap, and I expect it's a month or two away.
Yeah, it looks like it's about March. It's going to start rolling out.
March. Thank you, Lucy. Yeah. Sam, different tiers. That's a great call. One slight, it's not to say misconception. Last year, Teams released Teams Premium, which has an AI recap function built in. Now, we were quite excited about that and started playing with it. And it's a lot cheaper. It's $9 a user a month or something. Might be 11. It's a lot cheaper than $50 anyway. It's a very diminished product, so it allows you to have a recap. It'll automatically do it. It doesn't allow you to interact during the meeting or after the meeting. Now, we anticipated we would be able to interact more, as in edit the notes, but ultimately you can't do what we'd hoped. However, Teams CoPilot, the Teams CoPilot function, we found to be significantly greater than Teams Premium. Back to answering your question, Sam, I expect it will, but I think Microsoft, while they can get $50 for people that are keen, they will do that. So maybe in a year or two. Rich has asked the question, how do you best share meeting notes with the rest of your team, which may not have CoPilot? It's a great question, Rich. What we are doing is probably quite crude. We're still working on our kind of internal process, but ultimately we put in 2 queries to CoPilot. One is recap the meeting. Second is what are the action points? We might ask a couple of others depending on what's in there. And then we copy those together and then paste them in the chat for the meeting. So imperfect, but we're just working on something that's simple and works. So that obviously if people go back to that meeting, they can see the notes even if they don't have a CoPilot license. Tom, what are the main differences to ChatGPT? On paper, like the main difference is that it has access to your data. So if I want to take a Word document that has information about Tom Palmer and his company, for example, if I had that, which I don't, I wanted to get that into ChatGPT, I would have to grab a document, take it outside of our IT, as in not in SharePoint, and then copy the data, copy and paste the data, or I'd have to try and upload the document, which ChatGPT doesn't like. So you've got to go through a lot of hoops to get that data into ChatGPT. The other thing is ChatGPT have made it quite clear that that data is somewhat public. Now, it's for learning, so we haven't experienced data leaks, but ultimately they don't believe they're not saying it's secure. So you've got a security issue with ChatGPT over here. What we do believe is ChatGPT, we found it to be more clever. It's very hard to describe it much better than that. It gives longer responses. It gives better back and forth. So one thing ChatGPT is quite good at working with you to get the outcome. So you can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We found CoPilot to be almost a bit more temperamental. It will refuse you. ChatGPT very rarely refuses you unless you're asking it to do something illegal or what it considers to be immoral. It'll tend to just have a go. Now, it can be completely wrong, but it's having a try. I think CoPilot, Microsoft has developed it to do a set of tasks that is quite specific. And ChatGPT is very experimental. So yeah, if you're comparing the two, if you did a bit of writing, if you wanted help writing marketing content, I think ChatGPT is extremely good. But ultimately, ChatGPT, in our opinion, is not helpful if you want your organization to use it productively. It's very good for writing. Is there CoPilot for Power BI? It's a great question, John. Do you know the answer to that, Lucy? I know it's planned.
Yeah, I have a sneaky suspicion, and John will go away and check this, so it's not a definite lie. But it's more in the way that you've got CoPilot in Power Automate, if you've used that at all. So it is sort of a little built-in thing that's tied to your licensing, and they're not to CoPilot license specifically. But we will track that down because definitely a very useful one.
That's great. So yeah, I think that's most of the comments. Lucy, do you want to paste in finally, we thank everyone for attending. We hope you got value. Ultimately, we didn't want to give a puff piece to the product. We wanted to show what we can do well and also what we are finding difficult. Our expectation is that if you like to experiment, if you like to try and be at the leading edge technology, get a license. I would not recommend too many organizations get it for everyone at this stage, given the cost. We would also suggest that the clear business case, even if it's not the best product out there for this, but the clear business case that we expect is worthy of the money that you would pay is the Teams meeting recap. So if you have one Teams meeting a month online, it may not be incredibly beneficial for you. If you have many across your organization, we do think there is productivity gains to be had there. The other products that are there, we do think it needs more time. So if you were questioning whether this would save you money writing emails, it's hard to tell. We've had one of our customers said it's saving them a huge amount of time. We have found internally we're kind of using it sparingly rather than every single time. Yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of information on the product. And I did ask a question about the ice cream, and it's given me Lucy's. So didn't work for the chat. But thank you, everyone.
Which is good to know. Yeah.
Yes, thank you everyone for giving your chat your ice cream types. Lucy's pasted in a survey, or she's going to. I believe that it'll also be emailed around. I'd really appreciate getting your feedback on what you found useful, and have you enjoyed the session. Look, if you've got any questions for us, reach out to the IT team, go to our website, submit a form. If you're a customer, contact your account manager. If you're not, feel free to find us through the sources that'll be in the survey or on our website. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.